Okay. So welcome to our first round of concurrent sessions here on the last day of the ACTO conference. It is my pleasure to introduce our two presenters today. Garima and Sundeep Kapila really caught my attention a number of months ago. They were invited to present for one of our ACTO forums last year in 2022. And I was the session host for that session. I'm not sure I would have signed up for it based on the working title at the time. But I said, hey, I'm serving this rotation. And I found myself absolutely drawn in and fascinated by the story that they tell of where they came from and what they are doing and the impact that they are having on the world. And when we developed our theme of beyond what we know, I immediately thought we need to hear this story again in this venue, because this is beyond the work that you two are doing, really is beyond what most of us think of when we go into the coaching profession. So Garima and Sundeep are both have past history, obviously in the corporate space. You're both consultants with McKinsey and Company, right? Which means there was some hard driving corporate stuff going on. I know how McKinsey operates. And I also know tons and tons of ex-McKinsey people who say, okay, enough already. I'd like to connect with what life is really all about. So an excerpt from some things that you shared is that, you moved, Garima, this is you specifically, that you moved from constant self-judgment and disappointment in yourself for not operating at potential when you were in that corporate space to getting more into acceptance and self-love and bringing those gifts to the world in a different way. So in 2017, the Swasth Foundation, which these two founded, has delivered 70,000 plus person hours of sustained well-being services and training with a 4.7 star satisfaction rating to people across continents, incomes, and languages. That's a lot. It's a huge impact. It's way more than I think most coaches achieve. And as you're going to learn in this presentation, they have found ways to take coaching as a means of drawing people forward into areas that most people would not look at as a potential for coaching. So I'm going to have my notebook out and I'm going to turn the microphone over to the two of you to take us forward.
Thank you so much, Jim. Your words, I haven't had my morning tea, but your words were literally soothing my nerves. And your encouragement is what brought us here to repeat this session. And I think in that process, we've also learned a little bit deeper about the way we're trying to approach things. So I'm really looking forward to us sharing all of this with you. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge my original teachers here who are present, Seema and Vikram, with whom this entire journey started. So just so grateful for you and your presence here this morning. And what I'm going to do is actually, there is it's a few more gratitudes. So maybe let me just take a moment to do that before we deep dive into the session. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge our team here. I don't know if you can see the slide. I have a slightly different interface today. Okay, you can see it. Fantastic. So this is just some of the members of our team of coaches, and we are but voices for them. But it's all of them that we are representing today. And I would like to really express our gratitude to coaching, the art and science of which has empowered us and just millions and millions of people across the world. And to ACTO, I really feel this is tremendous work that's happening in the evolution of coaching through forums such as this, pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And last but not the least, I'd like to acknowledge every single one of you for being here, for showing up for our collective growth. So on that note, I'm going to maybe start with just sharing a little bit about my journey. I think for me, coaching has really shifted the trajectory of my life, and not just in terms of what I do, but the person that I am. And the time that it came into my life is 2016, so just 7 years ago. And I was going through a severe low at that time, because despite all professional and academic achievements, that yes, there's McKinsey and there's, other credentials that I had been in the development sector for long. I was an engineer, but I was really feeling that this is not my potential. I'm not operating at it. And just feeling like that constantly was not life enriching and nourishing in any which way. And when coaching came into my life, I think the meaning of the word potential got redefined for me. And I realized that my potential is really who I am. And there is no one else who's coming in the way of that but me. And what that enabled me to do is just to discover and accept my own self, embrace myself. And once that process started happening, what it led to was the birth of Swasth Yoga Institute that was birthed in 2017 under the umbrella and the mothership of Swasth Foundation, the broader organization that Sundeep had founded in 2008. So today we're very, very glad to be sharing our journey with you as social change makers, I guess, for the lack of a better word, and our journey in sharing and taking coaching principles to a wide section of people in India. And India is a very unique geography in the sense that it's both huge, home to a very, very big and a diverse population. And at the same time, it has the challenges of being a resource constrained geography. And this high scale, low resource environment has been our innovation lab. And it's said that necessity is the mother of invention. So it's oftentimes when we find ourselves in such a situation, that the innovations that happen there, when we transport them to other contexts, that can actually shift paradigms for the way we have been operating. So that's what we hope to share today. And this is just the perfect forum for us to be sharing, because ACTO is what stands for diversity, inclusion, and equity. And this is really what the heart of this session today is about, taking coaching for all, to all. So with that, I will just invite you all to join me for a few moments of grounding before we get started off. And we'll use a very simple tool called humming. So what I would invite you to do is, when I prompt you to, if you may, just purse your lips, and we make the sound like ma, for mother, the same sound as in that. Does that sound okay? Is that clear to everyone? Okay, fantastic. So if you could, wherever you are, just take a moment to, if you're seated on a chair, feel your feet in contact with the floor, and just getting comfortable in your seated position. Feeling whatever it is, the surface that you're resting on. Feeling your back being supported, either by a chair, a couch, or if it's not supported, feeling all the muscles that are just working right now to support you. Just becoming aware of our breath. And whenever you feel ready, we'll do a few rounds of humming. You can do this at your own pace, continuously. Just take a breath in the middle. So I'm going to start humming now. Two more times. Becoming aware of the subtle vibration of humming spreading through our bodies. And uniting us all. And as you settle into the resonance of this rhythm, I invite you to just connect with your intention for coming here. What is it that intrigued you, brought you here? And in your own time, as you feel ready, and come back to the space. And I invite you to just share on chat anything that you'd like to share. I'd love to hear. What is it that brings you here? So I'll leave the chat box open. Sharon is feeling peaceful. Vicky is here because coaching is a way of life and offering it to those in the margins. Vikram's here to celebrate our work and presence and learn with us. And Sukari talks of the limbic resonance as she was humming. Yeah, it's so fascinating to see this, the power of and the simplicity of this tool. And this is one of the ancient tools, actually. The Sanskrit name for it is Brahmari. And it's a beautiful tool that just grounds us into ourselves and the collective as well. Seema's intention is being open, curious, exploring together, and Alexandra's breathing to connect with herself. Linda's interest in social change brings her here. Great. Okay, so we're also tapping into our collective resonance of intention, learning together, and taking coaching to everyone. And we will spend some time sharing our journey personally and at Swasth. And then the second half is a lot more time on saying how is it that we can take it to some of the learnings to different contexts and even build on the learnings. So with that, I'll hand it over to Sundeep to share a little bit of our journey.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, maybe I'll just start quickly with what coaching has been for me. So my introduction to coaching happened a little bit while I was at McKinsey, but it really came to the fore almost 6-7 years later it came to me at a time when it was quite difficult. I had been a social entrepreneur for 7 years, and I had just seen or was just witnessing the moment what had gotten created at the end of 7 years was almost coming to a grounding halt. We were at a place where I'll show you what the work we were doing and which we still continue to do was just 1 month away from being shut down because of the lack of funds. But something unlocked, and I think something unlocked in me that happened through a combination of ISABs and coaching. And I think that started manifesting in the external in how Swasth since 2015 has also been on its own journey with 2017 seeing the birth of the Swasth Yoga Institute, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And so coaching played a big role in that. At least I believe I did my coaching and with Vikram Seema again with CFT. And after that, immediately the next batch, I was like, Garima, you have to do this. And she joined the next batch as well. And to me, the reason was very simple. I think somebody said in chat, and I'm trying to see who was that. Yeah, Vicky. Like to me, exactly when I did those, the CFT, it was like coaching is a way of living life for me. The two words that stuck with me that came out of those sessions were joy and freedom. So to live life with joy and with freedom. So the first couple of years, I enjoyed fully. I started living a life of joy where prior to coaching, I was still stuck in grief, which I wasn't even aware of because I had lost my dad 10 years ago, like 10 years prior to coaching, 2015, and I hadn't grieved for him yet. I had never shed a tear in those 10 years for him. And to me, coaching was that forum that allowed me to experience that grief fully and hence freeing me to experience joy in life. So once that happened, it was just for me to see how we could take it to more and more people. It was just, I think it just felt, I almost felt obligated to do that. And that's how the Yoga Institute came in as a vehicle from Swasth Foundation to get people to live freely. I think that's been the motto of the Yoga Institute. So to me, yeah, coaching is the genesis of coaching is that. So thanks, Vicky, already for sharing that. And now to make it a little bit more concrete and more context, I'll probably share a little of what we did before we started the Yoga Institute and wanted to take coaching much bigger, what our little experiments were with health first. That's how Swasth Foundation started. So the word Swasth, it's a Sanskrit word. In India, we usually translate it as being healthy. So being Swasth means being healthy. But as most Sanskrit terms go, if you go to the origin, the root of this word, Swasth literally means it comes from two words, swa and stha. And you'll see both of these sounds have, these sounds exist in other languages. So swa means self. So when I talk about myself, my inner self, that's swa. And stha means to be stable, right? So stha is stable, to be sthit in literally in Hindi as well, but stable in English. So the sounds exist. So swasth is literally to be stable, to stand in oneself fully. And that's what I remember how coaching was also introduced on how we can be aligned with ourselves. So Swasth, we started with the motto of health for all. And let me share a few slides, a few images to give you a sense of what that was. So the way this work started was in the form of these medical centers. We call them Swasth India Medical Centers. It's a network. It still runs very well, nicely. It's a network of not-for-profit primary health clinics, fundamentally serving the low-income households of Mumbai. So as people may know or may not, but basically Mumbai, more than 50% people live in low-income houses or slums. These are shanties. It's gotten more popularized with some movies in the West, but That's our reality. That's more than 50%. This is official government statistic that 52% people live in those low-income households. And our goal was to how do we get good quality healthcare there as a non-profit, because that's a big problem in India in healthcare. 80% of expenditure is out of pocket. There is no insurance in India. So if a person falls sick, he goes to a doctor, pays money to buy the medicines, pays money to buy the lab test. There is no coverage. So they're completely exposed. And the result is they essentially don't get treatment early on, keep waiting. And even when they get emergency hospitalized, still they don't actually have an insurance. Unlike, I think in the US, they still have to pay out of pocket. And that results in impoverishment. So almost 5% of Indians every year go from above poverty line to below poverty line due to healthcare. And that was the motivation to start this network of primary care, to say, can we get to people early on before things become very difficult, and make care very accessible and very affordable. And this is what we did. So this is a mom and pop store, literally like a very small, just around the corner neighborhood clinic. It would be about 200 square feet, probably smaller than rooms of most people in houses. And that would house a doctor, a general physician. It would have a nurse, a receptionist. It would have all the medicines stocked there that would be needed for primary care. It would do the blood tests that are needed for that purpose, including drawing venous blood. All blood tests, pathology, urine test is done there. And it would also have an extra bed in case a daycare support is needed for somebody, say, suffering from malaria or something. They don't need to have to go to a hospital. So all of these services were provided under one roof. Today, we provide this on a paid forward model, as they call it. So there is, we don't charge a fee for any of our service. We request for a donation from the patient if they can, whatever they can, and otherwise we raise donations and grants to run these clinics. We currently have 14 of these centers. The first one started just around this time. I think it was 20th June 2011. So we're just about completing 12 years for that. And in these 12 years, we have sort of serviced close to 1.5 million patient visits across these clinics, where the physicians have seen, they've gotten medicines. We measure our patient satisfaction, because one of the biggest risks when you give service free is the quality of service, particularly the service quality. The staff can easily get rude and misbehave and not treat the patient with respect. This is what happens in all our government facilities, which is why patients don't want to go there, even though it's free. But our rating has been 4.5 on an average. We have worked quite actively. It was 4.3, but now it's at 4.7. But since beginning, our average is 4.5, and we are hoping to keep improving our average. We've seen a recovery rate of 99%. So patients come and we check with them. For chronic diseases, we check their condition, their measurements, parameters, and acute. We ask them, is your fever down? Is your cough down? Are you feeling better? And that's what we note. These are self-reported numbers, satisfaction and recovery. And most importantly, we have saved close to $3 million of healthcare expenditure. And all of this money has ended up in people's pockets. Like, they are spending on getting better nutrition for their children, on spending for schooling for their children and other expenses. This is the most conservative estimate. This is the estimate of the market value of the service we have delivered. But I think our biggest saving has been in reducing number of hospitalizations, number of indebtedness due to those hospitalizations, because which is a massive problem in India. So this is the background of the work that we have been doing. This is what we were doing in 2015. As I said, when I got introduced to coaching, this was about to come to a halt. We had money for only 1 month left, and we luckily got a very good donor. Mr. Tata came in and supported us through that 1 year, which was a very difficult period. And since then, with God's grace, it's been okay, and we've been doing fine in terms of continuing our service. So when coaching then happened in 2015, 16, Garima did also. And then we said, how can we at least take it to others? The benefit we got, can we actually at least let's start. Where can we start? So we started with our staff. So our staff, the medical staff, the doctors, the nurses, who were always under pressure. So COVID brought that to light, that how much under pressure they are. We would see that every day at our clinics, that they were under pressure. So we said, can we support them in that? And yeah, we started a program. So good to have Mungesh here. He was one of the coaches in that program as well. So we said, let's start with that. So we did some group workshops on emotional intelligence and one-on-one coaching. These are the two things we started because we saw both of these going together. So emotions was something I think we definitely the social emotional learning has gotten introduced in Indian schools just now. So all the staff we have and the people we know haven't gone through any bit of learning on emotion. So we said, let's start with that and get on one-on-one coaching. We had about 75 staff personnel across all levels. We got 20 life coaches and 2 facilitators. So yeah, Mungesh was one of the coaches. So who did this service pro bono. A lot of mine and Garima's batchmates were there. So we got them and they engaged very actively. It went on for 3 to 6 months, like a typical coaching engagement would. And we did that. Very high satisfaction against from our staff. So staff was very happy. 88% satisfaction. We've struggled to keep them happy. So 88% was very good. We knew that. And most of them responded with a sense of increased leadership potential, more confidence in the way they interacted with the community, with their patients, with us as their managers as well. I think it changed a lot. It sort of unlocked joy also in our system, which was partly what I wanted to also achieve it. And that's when I think by the end of this, our vision had from being health for all had become health and joy for all. So, and that had come bottom up. That had come from people saying now that's what we want our vision to be. We want everyone to be joyful, including themselves. So this is what sort of our journey was before we said how now we can take this ahead. So I would request Garima, we made a short AV to just give you a more practical sense who these people were, how did their lives get affected. So I'll request Garima to play that for us. And then maybe take questions.
मेरा लाइफ कोचिंग स्टार्ट हुआ तो मेरे ये बहुत सही टाइम पे ये हुआ जब मेरा लाइफ चेंज हुआ रोल के साथ में, क्योंकि पहले मैं क्लिनिक पे थी तो क्या 4 घंटे ड्यूटी करो घर पे जाओ वो मैनेज हो रहा था, लेकिन जब मैंने ऑफिस ज्वाइन किया तो पर्सनल और प्रोफेशनल लाइफ हैंडल करते हुए मुझे बहुत तकलीफ हो रही थी। और ये लाइफ कोचिंग मेरे लाइफ में बहुत सही टाइम पे मुझे मिला है। मुझे लग रहा था कि मेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, लेकिन जब मैंने लाइफ कोचिंग का पहला सेशन किया उसमें मेरा पहला ही यही था कि मुझे इसके ऊपर काम करना है। जब उसने मुझे पूछा कि आपको क्या करना है तो मेरा ये पहला था कि मुझे छोटी छोटी बात पे गुस्सा आना, चिड़चिड़ापन ये बहुत होता था। उसमें पर्सनल और प्रोफेशनल लाइफ मतलब ये नहीं हो रहा है, मैनेज नहीं हो रहा दोनों मेरे हाथ से। और घर में भी थोड़ा उसकी वजह से फ्रस्ट्रेशन रहता था, टेंशन रहता था कि मैं काम का टेंशन घर के लोगों के ऊपर निकालती थी। तो मतलब लाइफ कोचिंग के बाद ये बहुत चेंजेस मुझ में हुआ कि जो चिड़चिड़ापन जो गुस्सा छोटी छोटी बात पे ये तो बहुत कम हुआ है। और मुझे लाइफ में एक्चुअली क्या करना है, मेरा गोल क्या है वो मुझे फिक्स नहीं था। और मैं इसके बारे में सोच भी नहीं रही थी ज़्यादा, लेकिन लाइफ कोचिंग के बाद मुझे वो रियलाइज़ हुआ कि मुझे एक्चुअली लाइफ में क्या करना है और उसके लिए मुझे क्या करना है, क्या तरीका है जिससे मैं वो गोल पा सकूँ। तो मुझे लाइफ कोचिंग से क्लियर हुआ, थैंक्स टू माई कोच मोहन सर।
जो आप लोगों ने शेयर किया, अपना एक्सपीरियंस शेयर किया और जिसके बारे में बताया, आई वॉज फीलिंग लाइक आई वॉज प्रेजेंट हियर फॉर लास्ट 6 months। और एक मैं कॉर्पोरेट वर्ल्ड से हूँ तो कॉर्पोरेट में कई सारे अपना थ्योरीज की बात करते हैं, बट प्रैक्टिकल जो है वो मैंने आज देखा। अभी शाइन बोल रहे थे कि मेरे में कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं था यहाँ पे खड़े होकर बोलने का। जिस तरह से उन्होंने बोला यहाँ पे खड़े होकर, उससे बड़ा कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं हो सकता। on this and I am really blessed to be here on this. Thanks a lot.
लेकिन और एक और बहुत सारे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ में जुड़ा हुआ। एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन साथ में काम करना। बेघर लड़कियों और औरतों के साथ में मेरा एक काम चलता है। तो उस दौरान बहुत बार आया कि कोचिंग वहाँ ले जाना चाहिए, लेकिन हर बार कुछ और चीज़ इम्पोर्टेंट लगी और वहाँ पे वो नहीं कर पाए। लेकिन आज ये देखकर एक प्रॉमिस अपने आप के साथ में कि वो जल्द से जल्द शुरू होगा। ऑलरेडी इतने सारे कोचिंग यहाँ पे हैं, इनसे रिक्वेस्ट किया जाएगा कि साथ दे उस प्रोग्राम को आगे बढ़ाने में। मुझे लगता है कि वो सीख लेके मैं यहाँ से आप सबसे लेकर जा रहा हूँ। तो अपने आप से अपने कमिटमेंट भी करना था और आप सबको थैंक यू भी बोलना।
This video is 7 years old, but it's just still fills me with so much joy. Just seeing the energy in people's faces, smiles, and yeah. I also actually interacted with Altaf, our coaching faculty, just recently, and he was sharing that he did go back and make sure coaching was introduced in the nonprofit that he had founded. And so, just an example of the ripple effect that when we see the possibilities, just so much can get unlocked in just that. I'll just hold space for a while, like I'm feeling that need, and I know a couple of you have also expressed that. Just breathe and be. Yeah, Mukesh.
Thank you so much, Garima and Sundeep. At that time, I know how life was when I used to come to your office, that building, and searching for that address for the first time and meeting everyone, asking a lot of questions, and I was feeling anxiety about how would I be able to support someone, and I learned a lot, and thank you for capturing all these memories. And I'm feeling grateful. And like you said, Altaf did that. And I was so lucky that I was part of that program also. So he did like that was a coaching intervention for all the women and, those homeless girl staff. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mukesh.
Thank you.
And I'm also acknowledging Sharon. Vikram talks of how this is part of the legacy that she's created for us, and ripple effects. Thank you, Sharon.
I was just typing in the chat how, this is just filling my heart. It's so much of the dream I had for urban US cities. And we did some work in Battle Creek, Michigan, but not so much with the population that I know needs it so much. So it was difficult here to get it started. So it's actually really renewing my excitement and passion because I realize what's possible when you have a team as opposed to trying to build it by yourself. So thank you so much for making it a reality. It's just wonderful to see it happen. So I'm grateful.
Thank you, Sharon. And you really hit, I think, home the point that the importance of the team, and that's been one of our key learnings as well. That there is only so much that we can do by ourselves when we all come together. So it's coaching for all and from all. Is how I'd put it, the power of the collective, which again, I think this forum stands for. And I think for us, Sandeep, yeah.
I was just going to add, I'm hoping that by the end of this, what Garima will share, how we have now taken this coaching to our patients at our clinic finally. So we have coaches who are working with very active patients with pathology and the impact it's having there. It's quite fascinating, and that's something I think can go to the places in US as well. We're trying to do that. We have some coaches there now. Hopefully, we can do that as well with your support. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as Sandeep said, with the success of this program, that was the next question that we as engineers and consultants would think, all right, how do we scale this? How do we take this to more? And our patients, because our staff had been impacted. And what we realized that was that there itself, I think the first barrier came up, that in its current format, we could not take coaching to our many patients. And here are some of the challenges that became sort of real for us. First, that we came across these three basic challenges of accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. So at a fundamental level, we realized that while we had managed to put together a team of 20 coaches for 75 staff, how are we going to do this for millions of patients, right? So we don't have enough coaches, and we probably never will. We will never get to that many number of coaches. It's a very specialized profession after all. The other challenge was that both coaching and coach training in India specifically were also quite expensive. And both were connected because coach training was expensive. There were not enough coaches, and therefore, coaching was a scarce resource. So coaching as a service would also end up being expensive. And in the process of working with our staff, all of whom belonged to the same communities that they were serving, we also realized that there were barriers both at a personal level and also at a cultural level to seeking support. Even till this date, mental health is not something that's very easily talked about, acknowledged in India even. So that was again a practical challenge that we ran into. And the way I sort of visually summarize this is if we're looking at this pyramid, where the bottom is a large percentage of people at the bottom of the income pyramid, and the top is the very small percentage. We saw coaching being largely here, both in terms of the clients, the demographics of the clients and the coaches. And that's when I think we realized that, yes, we could hope for that scale to happen over time, but we do need to shift the paradigm of how things are happening. And I think that's where one of the realizations that we had was that we could actually apply our learnings from primary healthcare, the work that had been happening in the clinics, to say that the innovation can have a new form. We can retain the essence of coaching, but the form in which it's taken to people is something that we could perhaps experiment with. And almost like flip the pyramid and say, how can the bottom of the pyramid be getting access to it? And what would it take for this to happen? And the possibilities were tremendous. The possibilities were that if there is a new paradigm, we could have more coaches, reach more clients, reduce costs, just as the clinics has done. As one of you computed that it's just less than $2 per interaction at the clinic. So could we do that for a coaching service as well? And also not just reduce the cost, but perhaps even be more effective than earlier. So this was a realm of possibilities. And I will share with you, I think, the way we have come to experiment, and I hope that we will generate many more ideas here today. Here's what we did. We said that coaching needs the essence of coaching, which is around the principles, the values, the skills, the competencies, and the ethics, that we don't change. What we need to look at differently, perhaps, is the form in which it's taken, and also perhaps the context in which we are applying it. So Swasth, because it was doing its work in healthcare in any which way, this fit a lot with us to start extending the context and taking this to the context of sustained well-being. And sustained well-being is what we define as a virtuous cycle of health and joy. As Sandeep said, we've been focusing on health before that, but joy is the other dimension that got unlocked for us. And if we see at the heart of it, well-being at a physical, mental, spiritual level, at a personal, professional, social level, that's what all of us are seeking in life, irrespective of our circumstances, of our position. So it is really a universal need that we were tapping into. And this evolution did not happen overnight. It took us also time. We started with working towards physical health coaching, because that is what was more aligned and came more naturally to us. But eventually we recognized that for well-being to be sustained, it had to be holistic in nature. It had to cover all dimensions of people's outer and inner lives. And here is what things look like today. Again, I just wanted to give you a look and feel of how things are today. So 7 years after that coaching program, there was a new institute that was born called Swasth Yoga Institute, where the word yoga is Sanskrit for harmony. And what the institute does is it's designing, delivering, and scaling sustained well-being by designing a lot of offerings, delivering it to people across continents, income segments, and languages, and trying to scale by building capacity of coaches as well. In the 6 odd years that we've been present, we have delivered 70,000 person hours of services with a good amount of participant satisfaction that we hope to retain as we extend. I think this was a learning that I took from the medical centers, that just like we're measuring the service quality and the satisfaction in healthcare, why not measure that in coaching? Why not coaches get feedback from their clients and what they're doing well and what they can do differently for the service of the participant. And participants have gone on to reverse chronic physical diseases, so actually getting off the medications that they were on. My father, Sundeep's mother, have been our first patients and participants. I just want to acknowledge their, I think, openness in being our guinea pigs as well, and showing that it is possible. It is possible to move from anxiety and depression to mental clarity and emotional stability. It is possible to harmonize work and relationships, just like that clinic coordinator, Rekha, whose video you saw, was able to. But none of this would have been possible without a support ecosystem, as Sharon was talking about. That this has been the combined effort of a team of coaches, but also a team of institutions that have been supporting us. So there are institutions like the Indian Yoga Association and SVyasa, which is a yoga university, which are giving us with whom we're affiliated to be able to offer certain certifications as well to our coaches. Leadership That Works, the Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies, Yoga Anatomy. These are some of the organizations that are also, again, offering, generously offering scholarships to those of our coaches who wish to go deeper into certain domains as well. And research is also a part of this. We do believe in measuring and analyzing what we're doing. So again, the Harvard School of Public Health has funded our first research project in very, very rigorously evaluating the impact and seeing what could be different in the model. So here's how Swasth Yoga Institute's services look like today. There's a lot of one-on-one work that happens, but in addition to that, bulk of the work happens in a group setting. And I'll talk about why that is the case. But today, participants, and this is a glimpse into our work with the mid to high income segment, they get a range of choices in terms of things that workshops and journeys that they can sign up for. And as you can see here, the caption is to design your journey to physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. So people really are saying, where is it that I am currently and what is it that could serve them in their life? You'll see here a program on nutrition, for example, nourishing one's own body, because that is also what goes on to create our thoughts. There is a workshop on enabling people with emotional intelligence skills to be able to navigate through their emotions. A series on working with nature, tapping into the wisdom of nature and seeing what would it mean to live a life in harmony with and embodying the key principles of life. And then there are workshops that are founded and based on our the very traditional teachings of yoga in our culture, the ancient teachings of yoga, whether it's on psychology, whether it's on philosophy, or just understanding the essence of yoga, which is harmonizing one's body, energy, minds, and emotions. There are workshops where people can learn how to certain set of physical practices for well-being. They can learn how to cultivate a meditation practice. For people who are more leaning towards the modern way of doing things and not necessarily the traditional, there is workshops around modern science. What is biology? What is physics saying about modern science, about well-being, and how can be applied to our context? So there's a lot of different choices that people get to start. And oftentimes we've noticed that they start with their comfort zone, but they realize that there is beauty in also embracing the other side of the polarity. So someone who may have started with pure yoga philosophy will then ultimately also be intrigued by science, because each of the workshops is also very integrated in nature. So while we may start with philosophy, let's say, we will embed the other end of the polarity, which is science, also in that. If we start from the body, we will bring in the mind in. So people also start, I guess, getting open to the fact that there are all these dimensions that within them, which when we harmonize, that's when we're whole and complete and can be live freely. So all the workshops are also, most of the work is happening online today, which is enabling us to reach a lot of people. Very small groups for personal attention as well. And what I'll also show is just a short video now that shows some of the, yes.
Garima, I just wanted to add one common thing. So while you see a lot of diversity across these workshops, I think the two things which are common. One, in each one of these workshops, the way the space is held, it's held by a coach. And so the essence of the workshops, it's held with a coaching mindset, the coaching principles, the values of being curious, of being compassionate, of asking questions. So that's one big common piece across these workshops that is very, very important. And the second part, which is common across all of these workshops, is we always offer at least one, and oftentimes it becomes more, one-on-one options, right? To interact with the coach, at least with one-on-one session, to customize that to their context if they want to, and to really engage and experience that coaching mindset in a very intimate and close fashion. That's part of every workshop design. I think these are two common things across. While it may look a lot in terms of the diversity, but when you hold that space with this intention, even the space on science, for example, like biology is discussed in a very coaching container, and not in a typical biology class container, and that makes all the difference. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight those two.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Would you like to take a question Sharon shared in the chat? Is internet access an issue or barrier to reaching a wide audience? You may like to take this right now or later.
Sure. Yeah, I think these workshops, I think they primarily reach out to, like Sharon is pointing to, a very different audience than what our clinics do. But what these workshops have allowed us is also to be able to develop the content, develop the modality in a way, and now we are translating this and taking it to our clinic audience through physical classes. I think there it's now we are integrating with our clinics. So we've piloted it in one of our clinics where there is a yoga coach or a Swasth yoga coach, which integrates along with the doctor. And I think it's getting standardized. Our hope is in the next 1.5 years, we take that across all our clinics. So each of our clinic will have a doctor and a coach at the clinic running, like they will have their own cabin and they will have their own consultations. They will hold their group workshops in the community, but physical, those would be physical. I think there we still can't rely on internet. We did try, even during COVID, we did try, but yeah, I think the familiarity, they would typically be with a phone and not a laptop, and that changes the presence and the impact that it has. So yeah, I think it's a little far away still.
Thank you, Sandeep.
And the next video actually gives a glimpse of what this looks like in that physical context for the participants and the patients of our clinics also. So I think it'll make it real for you also. Let me just play this video.
मैं स्वस्थ योग इंस्टीट्यूट में आनंद योग कोच के रूप में जुड़ी हुई हूँ। जो लो इनकम कम्युनिटी के फैमिलीज हैं, 20 में से एक घर हर साल गरीबी रेखा के नीचे जाता है हेल्थ शॉक के कारण। हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन का, दवाइयों का खर्चा इतना ज्यादा होता है कि लो इनकम कम्युनिटी जो 8-10 हजार रुपए हर महीना कमा रहे हैं, उनकी सारी जमा पूंजी उस हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन में खर्च हो जाती है। और अगर आपकी इनकम अच्छी भी है तो भी स्वास्थ्य की प्रॉब्लम हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी समस्या होती है। हमें हमारी बीमारी का रूट कॉज नहीं पता होता और फिर हम अपनी हेल्थ, अपना स्वास्थ्य आउटसोर्स कर देते हैं। हम यहाँ पे कोशिश करते हैं कि हम योग के माध्यम से लोगों को कैसे अपने बीमारियों से छुटकारा दे सकें। 1 महीने से लेकर 3 महीने तक के वेलनेस कोर्सेज करते हैं। तो ये अलग अलग तरीके के कोर्सेज हैं, यौगिक व्यायाम, यौगिक आहार और संजीवनी, जिसमें ये दोनों का भी कॉम्बिनेशन होता है। उनको सबसे पहले बताते हैं कि कैसे आपका बॉडी, कैसे आपका मन, कैसे ऊर्जा आपकी और कैसी भावना कैसे काम करती है, उसके बारे में उनको पूरा जागरूक करते हैं। फिर उनको पूरा यौगिक तरीके का व्यायाम, एज के हिसाब से, बीमारी के हिसाब से हम उनको वो सिखाते हैं। फिर बताते हैं कि दवाई और आहार, इन दोनों का भी आपके जीवन में क्या महत्व है, वो कैसे काम करते हैं और वो कैसे आपको स्वस्थ रहने में मदद करते हैं। मेरे प्रोग्राम में अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 7,500 लोगों ने अलग अलग इंटरवेंशंस में पार्टिसिपेट किया है और अपनी हेल्थ में इम्प्रूवमेंट पाई है। हाइपरटेंशन लोगों का 54% से भी कम हुआ है। डायबिटीज, जॉइंट पेन, लोगों के बैक पेन, पीसीओडी, मेंस्ट्रुअल साइकिल के प्रॉब्लम्स, ऐसी सारी प्रॉब्लम्स के भी सिम्टम्स जो होते हैं उनके रिडक्शन 60% से हुआ है। इससे सिर्फ फिजिकल हेल्थ ही नहीं, लेकिन सोशल, मेंटल, इमोशनल, स्पिरिचुअल हेल्थ पे भी काफ़ी इम्प्रूवमेंट हुई है और लोगों ने अपना जीवन आनंदित बनाया है। जबकि ये सॉल्यूशन हमारे पास ही है, हमारे आसपास है, लेकिन उसके परिणाम को बढ़ाना और उसे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों तक लेके जाना ज़रूरी तो है, लेकिन आसान नहीं है। तो अलग अलग प्रोग्राम्स क्रिएट करने के लिए रिसर्च करना, मेरे जैसे और आनंद योग कोचेस बनाना, इसके लिए बहुत तरीके के मटेरियल्स, टूल्स लगेंगे। मेरी आशा यही है कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग इस काम में जुड़े, इस इनिशिएटिव को सपोर्ट करें और उसके बाद हम इस काम को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों तक लेके जाएं, लोगों को स्वस्थ बनाएं। नहीं, मेरा सपना यही है कि ये हेल्थ, ये स्वास्थ्य सबको मिले और सबके दिल में आनंद हो। ये मेरा सपना है।
So the work in the clinics is also largely starting with physical health, but we also recognize that to get to physical health, it'll only happen if the mind, the body, the spirit are all in alignment. So in that sense, again, the presenting agenda may be physical health, but it does lead participants to an overall, understanding of and harmonization within. And what I'll attempt to do now, I think we've spoken a lot about our work. So now I'm going to pull out a little bit of Swasth, and we will actually try to abstract out some of our learnings, share those, and see how is it that we can build upon those and innovate further. So here is, I think, one last slide for now. Some of the key learnings that we've had on taking coaching to all. And as I share all of these learnings, I just invite us all, before we get into the learnings, to put all thoughts of feasibility aside. Because yes, we cannot do this alone. This will require a lot of resources and a lot of other things may come in the way. But if we can, for a moment, just imagine that we have all the resources that we need. And we will talk of feasibility for sure later. But right now, let's just be the realm of what is possible. So the first learning that we had is to work and coach for all aspects of inner life, the body, the mind, the spirit. And to really start with whatever is in the comfort zone of a participant. If someone wishes to work on their body, to start with their comfort zone right now. And I'm reminded of one of our clients who initially came to us with a chronic back pain issue, which we figured in our first conversation that it was psychosomatic in nature. We actually did start off a coaching-based assignment for her. But I think she was not in a place where she wanted to do the mental work. So she came back after 2 sessions and said, this is not what I want to do. I want to engage with my body. And so I think for me, the learning was, even though I so know that coaching is going to be so beneficial for her, the one-on-one coaching in the format that I knew, if she wants to work with the body, how can we honor that? And create a container where she can do her body work, but as Sundeep was saying, with the coaching principles. How can she learn to listen to her own body's wisdom? How can she learn to follow her breath and to be in harmony with that? And to slow down, because the moment the body slows down is when the mind can also slow down and really look at what is happening, what are her patterns. And that's what happened. The process of working with the body gave her a lot of relief that she wanted immediately. But the more she did her work, she could actually start seeing patterns, that it is when I'm stressed at work that my back pain increases. When that awareness came into her picture, because she was aware of her body, she automatically became aware of her mind. She was still not ready to do the one-on-one work, so she signed up for a group workshop where we work with tools of emotional intelligence. That gave her the safety to say, okay, I want to do one-on-one work. So I think that's how her journey evolved. So it's really meeting where the person is at. Likewise, for outer life, coaching for all aspects of the outer life, the personal, the professional, the social, and everything beyond. And I think, Sundeep, what you had shared about your journey, how you were stuck professionally, there was something stuck, which was making Swasth stuck. But that unstuckness actually happened when you tapped into your grief of having lost your father. So it was only when you worked through the personal that the professional also got unlocked. So again, we allow people and we invite them to come in with whatever it is that they would like to start their work with, and trust that finally all of them do get harmonized in the process when the person is ready. The third learning is to also expand our toolkit. So coach for all aspects, but also coach through all kinds of tools. And that's what you may have seen in the range of workshops that was presented. Again, people may choose to work with their food patterns, for example, and realize that when I work through, when I look at what causes my food cravings, again, they come to a conclusion that it is when I'm stressed that I actually crave for more food. So what am I actually trying to nourish myself with? So giving a wide range of tools for people to honor all ideologies. I think this one again is so obvious when I stated at ACTO, but for us to arrive at this point has also been a journey. And in India, particularly, we recognizing just how old and ancient this country and its traditions are, that in India, people are anchored in faith, in community, in tradition. These are the values of this country, and we needed to embrace those. So if I talk of, for example, in food, instead of nutrients, what appeals to people is to go back to what their great-grandparents had, what were the traditions of their village. When it's rooted in that, it makes the process much more, I think, just easier for them to embrace. Similarly, for affirmations, which is again such a beautiful tool that I learned through my coaching journey. When we tap into mantras, the ancient Sanskrit mantras, they are affirmations. For example, the mantra of Aham Brahmasmi, I am the creator and I am the everything. That is an affirmation just in a language and in the context that they are very rooted in and would understand. So we realize that instead of trying to keep these aside, the moment we embrace it, they embrace everything even more. The next one was to provide all ways to engage. And this again really, really challenged us because we had this definition of how coaching needs to be. When you're coaching, you never tell, you only ask. And I think Mangesh would remember this, that when we used to coach our staff members, they would come back, some of them would come back and, tell me or the coach that, you're asking me all these questions. I'm not here to be asked questions. I'm here because I want you to guide me and I want you to tell me. That again, I think is perhaps coming from a just different value system where in our context, people value and respect the elders or someone who has more knowledge, and that's their way of arriving at things. So we realize that people also need to be given choices and how they would like to engage with us. Do I want to be in a pure coaching space? If for example, I'm high on will but low on skill, I perhaps just need some sort of training. If I might just need some mentorship, I just need someone to tell me what to do. So providing that choice of tools of engagement, but recognizing that the underlying spirit remains the same. It is in service of the client. So if I'm telling something to the client, it's not because I wish to tell, it's because the client wishes to receive it. I like that. And this can also happen in different forums. Sometimes within the same container, also we end up wearing different hats because each of those hats serves a different role as well. And finally, was also again recognizing that people also are comfortable in different forums of engagement. Some people prefer one-on-one. When we tell them there's a workshop, they say, no, I want personal support. But for some people, being in a workshop, hearing from others, which again, here is like a very important, value of community. That is what feels safe. That is what feels enriching. That's what inspires them as well. So again, we give people the choice. But as Sandeep was saying, we also make sure they understand that the other option is also there. So if it's a workshop they sign up for, they will get at least 1 or 2 personal interactions where they experience that and the power of that. If it is a personal interaction, we will also encourage them to experience a workshop and see what might unlock for them. So these have been like the alls, it's the coach for all aspects of the inner, the outer life, through all tools, honoring all ideologies, through different ways, all ways of engagement and all forums of engagement. So what I'd like to invite us into is to just maybe take some time with yourself. If you can, I'll just pause now and see if there's a lot going on in the slide, but I just invite each of you to zoom in into one aspect, one of these that's really resonating with you, your experience, that you'd like to spend more time reflecting on and exploring and sharing with the rest of this group also. So I'm just going to hold silence for a few minutes. Based on whichever learning you pick, here is a suggested question. You could look at this, or you could also see what else is alive for you and how you might want to deepen this.
Yeah, share something?
Yes, please.
So in that chart, I'm hearing this in the context of the last 2 days of the conference as well. Number 5, provide all ways to engage. In some ways ties back to our opening keynote talk, where Luis spoke about the general theory of coaching and the different modalities in which we can engage, based on what someone needs. And so I can see a real connection there between the learning that you have and this idea of giving ourselves permission, I guess, to step outside of that focus on, well, we have to draw it out of the client. That is what coaching is, right? I love this ongoing emphasis that I've heard over the last few days, and in much of, I hear it other places too, around noticing that coaching is inquiry. Coaching is drawing out of the other person their own wisdom. And not every client in every session is going to thrive from only having coaching available to them. Because sometimes they are missing something. There is a gap where they don't have the answer, or they don't believe the answer. Or I love how you pointed out that culturally, they may not feel comfortable giving the answer that they think they have because the person in front of them is an elder, it's a teacher, and culturally, they're not going to talk over that person. So I love the reinforcement that you're offering around recognizing that in a coaching relationship, in a space where we're trying to help someone else move along, that we need to consider, what do they need from us? And sometimes it's that we step into a different way of getting that information to them. My takeaway from this session so far is that distinction you offered right there at the end, which is if we shift into telling, that we're telling not because we want to, but because they need us to. And I think that's a really important distinction, especially for those of us who came out of consulting and mentoring and teaching backgrounds into coaching. It's like, well, I could do that, but is that what you need right now? Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for all of this.
Thank you, Jim.
I think, I wanted to respond to something Jim said and then answer your question. I think and Jim, I'm paraphrasing, but when we say coaching is, I think that's what has been defined for us. And I know what I found and what many other people have found is that when we take coaching into our communities, how coaching was defined doesn't work. And so what we've done is we've adapted it for our communities, for people who we live with and interact with on a daily basis. And I think that's at the heart of why I've been really pushing for coaching to be expanded, because the definitions and the markers and everything have come out of this monocultural lens. We've had to adapt it to the people that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And it's become much more than that, but the coaching profession hasn't incorporated it yet. So yeah, even the coaching is triggering for me because we didn't all get to be a part of defining it, and we know it's much more. But anyway, I picked number 4, and I think everything that you've laid out here is so exciting for me because you've pulled together all the fragments of pieces that have been roaming around in my head for about a decade. And so number 4, honoring all ideologies. So in I think over the course of my training and all of my research and work in the community with coaching, I still come from this lens of, I think, seeing it a different way and not fully honoring that within the Black community, there's a lot of really traditional Christians, there are Muslims, there are people who are Buddhists. And so, you know, if I come in with a program or something or an approach that doesn't really take into consideration all of the varying faith traditions, all of the, you know, the age differences, you know, so younger people look at things differently than the older generation. And I think, like you said, I mean, everybody is really at the heart of it, focused on health and joy. And if we're meeting people where they are instead of, you know, this is eye-opening for me because I realize I come in with a certain lens and I forget that the way to reach the people that I want to reach most is really to honor all parts of their traditions. And I especially liked what you said about, you know, because I'm all into nutrition and, you know, organic food and healthy food. And if I come in talking about the latest science, I've lost 90% of the people I want to talk to. But if I ask them, you know, what did your great grandmother do? You know, what are the healing modalities that your grandmother, you know, used to use when you got sick? Or what were the foods that were most nourishing, you know, before all of our food got changed in the 50s or 60s? So yeah, just bringing people back to what's most important to them. So thank you so much.
And it's really like tapping into the wisdom of our ancestors and all this lineage that we have. So it's not the client by themselves. I feel like I think one of the things that's constantly gets challenged when I'm working with people of all modalities, through all modalities and honoring all ideologies, is I feel like there is so much more for me to do, and I'm not there yet to be able to serve them. And in moments like those, I think recognizing that I'm not there alone to support them. This is not about me. This is about them getting supported. Can I pull in another coach who perhaps may be good at this? I know Sundeep's strength is in science. So whenever people ask questions around science and I don't have answers to, or they want information presented in that sort of way, I'll bring him in. So it's also helped me to just like for participants to tap into their support system, for me to tap into a network of coaches around as well. Aryan.
So actually, I saw Seema's hand go up, like physical hand go up, before I put my virtual hand up. So maybe she could go first.
No, it's okay, Ariana. Why don't you go first? I'll go later.
Okay. Thank you. I think the thing that is coming for me is, I know you said put aside the issues of we don't have enough, fill in the blank, right? I notice my mind is still going there, but not as a restriction, more as a, what would this look like if we assumed we had the power to break those restrictions? And so where it takes me is like in the same philosophy that you are talking about in your presentation. What is it to bring this to people so that a woman can coach her neighbor? She may not be a professional coach, but what can we bring so that people bring the attitude of, I trust you, you know what's best for you. I'm not here to give you advice, except if I am, right? But not assume that you have to give advice, because I think that is what we tend to assume in our day-to-day relationships. If somebody asks us for help, we think we have to have the answer. So it's not to say you never do have an answer, but break the assumptions of what we can do to support each other in the world. And, you know, this whole pay it forward, you know, what if every time somebody participated in one of your various things that you have, part of what they took away is, who is one person who I want to bring something of what I learned to them? You know, and so we start populating it. I was telling someone here that for several years, I co-ran a program that brought coaching training into American prisons to the prisoners. So the prisoners got trained. And there was a prison where at a certain point, 10% of the inmates had gone through some coach training. And people in the prison, the inmates and the staff, started commenting on how the culture was changing in the prison, simply because of all these people who had received a training that had to do with listening. And I want to share one short story, because I want us all to hold the power that can come from the bottom up and not just from the top, bringing it down. There was a guy who was in the training in one of these prisons, who was in the big room where the guys hang out just on their free time. And a staff member came in and started yelling at him about something. And he sat there, he let him yell. And when the man stopped yelling, the inmate said, "I know you. This isn't like you. Are you okay?" And the guy just sort of, because that is not how inmates talk to staff in prisons ever, right? Personal, compassionate, open, not aggressive. And the guy said, "Wait, what?" And he came back to him later when he had kind of recovered his center, the staff member. And he said, how did you do that? And he said, "It's the coaching training. I was listening to you." I mean, to me, this is something that happened, I don't know, 15 years ago, and it's still deeply with me.
Wow. And that's such an expansive idea, right? Like, just what would it take for my neighbor or that prisoner? Like anyone, everyone has that potential, and you do not need to undergo 140 hours of training for that, because this is again tapping into the essence of who we are. And if we have experienced feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling understood, then paying it forward is not even, I feel like, something that one has to consciously do. It just happens because when our vessel is full, we want to give.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. So thank you, Ariana, for seeing my hand and bringing it. So, Garima and Sundeep, I'm very inspired really by the work you do. All of us are, and we feel so proud and the kind of impact you've created. So I'm very curious about two things, the questions, and we'd like to tap into your wisdom. One is like when I saw yoga coach. So you brought this traditional yoga, which is a way of life for us, and coaching, which I see a way of life rather than a methodology. So I see coaching moments rather than coaching sessions throughout my life, throughout my day. And you beautifully combined both of these. So I wanted to ask where you see both of them intersect, or you find them complementary. So that's one question I had in my mind. And second is something that I have been reflecting on for some time now. You use body, you use mind, nutrition, health, physical well-being, emotional. And in all this, I think what we're addressing is consciousness. And with coaching, also we're addressing consciousness. And I'm wondering, what is that in all these different diverse methodologies you use, diverse workshops, offerings? There's something in common if it comes in experience, because you work with wide range of people that pierces that consciousness, that what helps consciousness evolve, both in coaching and yoga. And this is and the more I go deeper into this subject, the more I know that I don't know. The more I work with my yoga teacher and he opens up some part of my spine and something happens in my consciousness, and he asks the coaching question very naturally, as you said, this is a part of us. And something more deeper opens up. And I'm wondering, I always wonder, what is this point which pierces the consciousness, which expands us? So I think these are two things that I'm sitting with, and I'm wondering what's your experience in this.
So, one of the ways I have more recently started exploring it is through the lens of physics and biology, right? So both of those as well, right? And while consciousness, topics like consciousness, the mysticism of yoga, and all the people that go around it seems like very mystical, very out of the place. And yes, yoga does say there is place for that as well. But a lot of it is actually just physics and biology playing out, right? It's the physics of the electrons and the neutrons and the protons, all that, sometimes the boring stuff which we didn't like at school. But it really is playing out here. We are made up of the same electrons and protons and neutrons, and the boring hydrogen and the oxygen, and the chemistry of that is what gives rise to the biochemistry, which gives rise to life, which is what we see around us. And it is all happening here. The unfortunate thing that happened, we all learned science in a way which was externalized. We learned science as a cell, biology as a cell, which is under a microscope. But what about the cells, the 10 trillion cells that are here within us, right? How can we experience that within us? That's what we experience. When we experience, it feels conscious. It feels consciousness. And so when we manipulate our body through a yogasana, when, like you said, the spine changes, it is changing. In physics, I will just say it's changing the geometry. And if the geometry changes, the electromagnetic effect will change. So if I have an antenna which is like this, or if I have an antenna which is like this, it will catch very different things. It will behave fundamentally differently. Physics knows that. But when it happens to our spine, we think it's something very surprising. So sometimes it's just some of those things. It's realizing, and more important, experiencing it in your own body and having faith in that experience, not in any doctor, any neuroscientist who is talking about this, because that is still half-baked. That's still half-baked. But what you can learn from here through a coaching mindset again, right? Be curious about what's happening here. Be compassionate about what's happening here. So if you start exploring it with that coaching lens yourself, you can actually learn most of the biology and physics that you need to know for your well-being. I hope it answers, or at least gives some way of thinking about this, because otherwise, yeah, the ways are very convoluted, I find. But it's just very simple physics operating, nothing more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where sort of I hope it answers both the questions, because that's where I see yoga and coaching also intersect. Right? Coaching bringing in this approach to what are sort of the yoga techniques. Yoga has a huge range of techniques, but how it is delivered, with what mindset we approach them, that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference. If it's with compassion, curiosity, or it's instructional, very different approach.
Yeah. Thank you, Sundeep. Sorry for interrupting. I'm sure we can, this is an interesting topic. We have a few minutes, and I was wondering if we can hear from Dorinda also and continue the discussion.
Hi. Hey, I am I have studied yoga and coaching for a long time as well, and developed a program called Body Wisdom. And what I understand and what I see that happens is that when we can connect people to their breath and to their body and to the energy, which we call prana. Okay. And that energy, which is, you just calm down naturally. The fears go away. And it's not even, it's hard to explain on a video, but you know that when I do this, this, and this, suddenly my brain calms down and I get under 5 breaths a minute and suddenly I don't feel like a tiger's chasing me. So I can calm down and I can be my true self. And I can speak from a place of love and not from fear. And if we can get us as coaches there and our coachees there as well, it's such a powerful transition of how we transform. And Rumi has a quote that says, you know, whatever, I don't even know, but beyond all the things and worries and fears, there's a field, meet me there. That's that field. And when we can get there, everything transforms. You can't explain it in words. I get that. Because it's love. And those little tools, which I also know from yoga, you don't have to call it yoga. You can call it anything you want. But when people feel safe, they transform.
Yeah.
But that's magic. That's love.
Wow, I had goosebumps.
Yes.
That is at the heart of it. You can call it what we may, the word doesn't matter. We want to honor the origin, but also enable people to make it their own.
And I would love to stay in contact with you after this as well.
I love so too. And I think, I'm just thinking of what Dorinda, you mentioned also, that some of these tools, when we talk of making this feasible, I think one of the learnings is also, just like we can rely on an ecosystem of coaches, have different people coming in to play different roles, we can also empower participants with these tools that they can do by their own selves at their home. I think that's the power of some of these technologies, that what yoga did and what so many other mindfulness practices, they are enabling people to become their own coach. To ground themselves without having to depend on someone. So that combination of someone's home and their own life becoming that place where they do their practices, and that's integration of that ecosystem of coaches supporting, can reduce the burden on an individual coach to be able to do this, because it's when we put everything together for all, from all, is when we can make this feasible.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you. That's a beautiful note to end on. Again, our theme for this conference is beyond what we know. And as I hoped and expected, this conversation absolutely brought more into that space, beyond what we think we know, what we've labeled as coaching. So thank you once again, Garima and Sundeep, for sharing your story, and congratulations on the impact and the power of the work you've done. We really appreciate your being with us here today. And with that, we have to wrap up this conversation. We are heading into a half-hour break, which will be 27 minutes now. We invite you to join us in the next round of conversations at the bottom or the top of the hour, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you once again, and see you again soon.
Thank you.